Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Luck of the Draw podcast, number 6. I found the last podcast I did, I said it was 6. It was actually 5. I think this one's the 6th one. I could also be very wrong on that, but you know what? It'll be fine. Welcome back to another podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the very new set. Pre-release was last week, and the official release is this week, so I thought jump on a little bit of the train of everybody else is doing, and I'm going to react to a couple of the cards that I'm super excited for this set, and a couple of the cards I think are going to be really, really good for cEDH. But before we get into this, I do want to shout some things out. If you want to check out the Discord, there'll be a link in the description. I'm always looking for new people to collab with, whether you're a YouTuber or you just want to be part of the videos or the podcast and you just want to join me in these videos. And I really appreciate it if you go down and like and subscribe. It boosts my channel and gets my viewership out there, but also tells me that people like enjoying my content so I can continue making it, because I'm just a high schooler at the end of the day. So there's not a whole lot of reason for me to do this outside of making people happy and doing it for my own personal enjoyment. So please support me and go down there and give it a like and a subscription. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, TMNT. New set got released. A lot of cool new cards. We're talking about 20 individual cards today and a couple of the combos, a couple of the things that are around these cards, and a lot of strategies that are going to be built into these cards. So, the first card we have today is Casey Jones Back Alley Brute. This is a 3 in a red legendary creature human berserker with menace. Whenever Casey Jones attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on attacking creature, or target attacking creature, and whenever you put one or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, Casey Jones deals that much damage to target opponent. So, this is a very similar effect to All Will Be One from New Phyrexia, I think. It's a very similar effect to that. So it goes infinite with cards like the Red Terror, which is whenever a red source you control deals damage to one or more permanents or players, put a +1/+1 counter on the Red Terror, which then would trigger Casey Jones. That's an infinite combo of dealing infinite damage. Same effect, I think, with War Elemental. War Elemental is a 3 red creature elemental with whenever it comes into play, sacrifice it unless an opponent was dealt damage this turn, and then whenever opponent is dealt damage, put that many +1/+1 counters on War Elemental. So basically, you have these 2 infinite combos that you can play in the deck. And one thing that cEDH really, really likes with commanders is 3 things: value, mana, or value as in card draw or way to be ahead of your opponents, mana, and combos. This is one of the 3, and I think that someone could build this in a way that it's a mono red, find your combo piece, win the game kind of deck. Kind of like not like aggro, but like a faster kind of deck that we see maybe less of in red. I mean, we know we have Magda that can boost out treasures with dwarves like fucking day and night, but I think compared to most other red decks in this format that we see, maybe that are super French, this has the potential to maybe be like a tier 2 deck. I think if it's built correctly, while still holding a lot of the similar combos like you do, like Wheel of Fortune combos, with Underworld Breach combos, with maybe Lions Like Diamond Grind Station, being able to win however you want, Dual Caster Mage combos. Those are also going to be in any mono red deck. But I think this has a way to kind of be a little fringe and good at the same time. Because when we look at fringe can sometimes be bad when compared to other meta decks. But I think the fringe that we play in this deck with the damage and the counter synergies could have a lot of upside moving forward as a commander. So I think it's a very interesting build, and I definitely want to see one coming up in the future. I might put my own deck list together with a Casey Jones commander, not exactly this one, but the next one, which is going to be Casey Jones Vigilante, which is 1 and 2 red. Whenever Casey Jones enters, draw 3 cards. At the beginning of your upkeep, discard 3 cards at random. So this card is very, very similar to a card called Burning Inquiry. Oh my god. 1 red. Everybody draws 3 cards, then discards 3 cards. So that's each player, but when this enters, you draw 3 cards, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you discard 3 cards at random. So what's really interesting about this is it's in the command zone, so we can play it around command zone effects. But another thing is you don't have to discard the cards right away, like Burning Inquiry or other impulse draw effects. Looting. No, that's wrong. What's the effect name when you draw and then discard? Is it looting? No. Cycling? No, that's an ability. It's very one of those effects, but we don't have to discard until our upkeep. So a lot of like Dual Caster Twin Flame kind of cards that double target or copy target creature are going to be really insane, because like you put down a Twin Flame, it's like 2 mana, draw 3 cards. you can definitely churn out multiple copy spells in this deck where it's kind of like a Tali where you just cast a 2-mana spell, get 3 free cards. Cast another 2-mana spell that copies Casey Jones, get 3 more cards. So there's definitely a lot of broken mechanics you can do with this, because when it enters, you draw 3 cards. Now, granted, if you can't win on that turn, you have to discard 3 cards at random for each ability that you put on the stack. But Red has such great ways of turning out, like, Graveyard Recursion. Obviously, we have Underworld Breach, but I think there's other multiple effects that works very similar to Underworld Breach that I've seen in other red decks where you can kind of recur stuff from your graveyard and play around that effect. Because I know there's a lot of like cards that are like instant sorceries gain flashback, or you can cast instant sorceries from your graveyard, like Ral cards that see a lot of play in Ral could definitely see its way into a deck like this. Like I said, I am probably going to plan to build this deck and play it on our TMNT gameplay channel, or gameplay video, not channel, but I am very, very excited to see where this goes. I don't think it'll be super popular. Granted, I did just say the last Casey Jones card could be like tier 2. That's if it's built right. This deck, I could also be saying the exact same thing, but I think both decks, both Casey Jones, are in a very weird situation where it's just like they have to see performance, and obviously no one's going to really play these, so it's really going to be hard to see the potential of these decks. But I am really, really excited to see how they do in a fringe, maybe high, not high, but low tier 2 kind of standing, high tier 3. The next card we have is Donatello the Brains. This comes from the Precon. It's a legendary creature, mutant ninja turtle for 2 and a blue. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a mutagen token are created instead. And then it has partner for character select. So you could put this in your command zone, but I think playing it in your 99 with the ability of whenever you make a token of anything, you make a secondary artifact token, and that might not seem very broken, very strong, but if you look at it as a way of you make a treasure token, you get another artifact. That works really, really well with like affinity for artifacts. This goes in a lot of mono blue artifact strategies where it's just like the more tokens you make, the more artifacts you just have in general. Like this would definitely go in a Urza Lord High Artificer deck where you're making a bunch of constructs and you're getting more artifacts to tap for mana. So that's a very easy way to just pump out a bunch of artifacts. On top of that, you also have like Lannis. Lannis is a very broken card in itself, but the way the deck is built with Simic artifacts where you're trying to make as many tokens, such as clues, foods, and treasures, now you definitely have a way of, if you have a way to make infinite tokens of those, you now have infinite mutagen tokens, and if you have infinite treasure tokens, you can crack all your mutagen tokens to give all your creatures plus a billion. So it could definitely also work its way into a combo line that works with Lannis. There's a lot of potential for this card to be very broken, but I also see it being a very stable card in a lot of blue strategies around artifacts. I really want to see where this card goes. I don't know if it's going to be played a whole lot, but there's a lot of cards in this set that are artifact themed and slash themed around you get something, you make more of it. And I think that's what cEDH needs. You need a way to get something on the battlefield that says whenever I do more of what the meta already wants, I do more of it. Because we're in a value situation where everybody's trying to get value. And so a lot of these cards in the TMNT set want value. And I think that's going to be really, really important moving forward in the meta game, going forward as the set kind of progresses. The next card we have is Ground Chuck and Dirtbag. That's such a crazy name, but it's 4 and 2 green legendary creature, Ox Mole Mutant, trample. Whenever you tap a land for mana, add a green. So this is a very similar effect to, I think, the exact same effect. No, not the exact same effect as Badger Mole Cub, because whenever you tap a creature for mana, you get an extra green, not just lands, but this one is specifically lands. The only reason I'm bringing this one up is that I could see it being playing Kinnan, honestly. Like, I want to see Kinnan Pilots. Do you play this card? Comment below. Because it's a flip-off Kinnan. It makes a bunch of mana. It's also an 8/8 trampler that if you copy someone's Tymna, you could be drawing a bunch of cards. Because I know Tymna plays a lot of copy/steal effects with Volatile, Storm Drake, and Gilded Drake. So I do want to see if Kinnan players played this. That's not just the reason I put it in the video. I also put it in the video because it's a good card. I don't think it's going to be Commander, but it is a cool big thing, a big creature that makes bunches of mana. It's really easy to replace itself as if you flip with it on Kinnan and you have 5 open mana, that's 10 open mana on a 7, maybe 5 mana activation, or if you just cast it for maybe 4 mana, like 4 lands and 2 mana rocks, and then you still have next turn 4 lands, maybe a fifth if you play your land drop plus 2 more, then that's 12 mana. So you've just doubled your mana production in 1 turn. That seems insane. So I definitely want to see if this goes in a lot of big mono green strategies, maybe like Selvala, or if it goes in a lot of Simic strategies like Kinnan, where it just wants to make as much mana as possible to try to win the game. This one is another deck that I'm trying to put together, Krang Mastermind. The name of the deck is actually really funny. I just call it Krang's the Fool because it's literally just like mono blue flubs. You play every 0 mana artifact and you try to get out Krang as much as possible, only paying the 2 blue cost. But so we have Krang Mastermind, 6 and 2 blue legendary artifact creature, Utrom Warrior. I don't know what that word is. I'm not a TMNT nerd. No one at me in the comments, but has affinity for artifacts, and whenever it enters, if you have fewer than 4 cards in hand, draw cards equal to the difference, and then Krang gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. So this obviously seems very broken, because if you play a lot of 0 mana or very cheap artifacts or ways to make blue pips, you can play this over and over again if you have blue copy spells, which blue has a lot of on creatures and a way to copy a lot of artifacts. And when you get lower on those land count, or get lower with cards in hand, you're able to play it for cheaper and cheaper because you're recasting the 0 mana artifacts or the 1 to 2 mana artifacts that you keep getting off its draws. That's why I'm calling the deck Krang the Fool, because it's very similar to Flubs, where it's draw, play, draw, play, draw, play, or play and draw, play and draw, play and draw. So it's very, very similar to that. And being able to just pump up a lot of little artifacts to try to maybe draw your whole deck or draw a bunch of cards that leads into a mono blue win outside of maybe normal strategy we like to see. So this is a very interesting deck. I find it very, very interesting, and I'm going to probably build this deck and play it on the channel in the next 2 or 3 games, hopefully. And I definitely want to see the potential it has as a cEDH deck. The next card we had is another Krang card. It could be legendary in your command zone, but I don't think it's going to. It's Krang the All-Powerful 4 and a blue legendary artifact creature, Utrom Robot. And if a player drawing a card causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control a trigger, that triggers an additional time. Whenever a player draws their second card each turn, put a +1 counter on Krang. So there's a lot of things in blue that trigger when your opponents draw cards. This doubles Fairy Mastermind triggers. That's broken. This doubles all Consecrated Sphinx triggers. This doubles all Smothering Tithe triggers. This doubles a lot of things. So if you're playing, I think this goes in Urza. This goes in like Kinnan. It's a great Kinnan flip if you're trying to play Con Sphinx and Fairy Mastermind. If you play, because I know Kinnan players probably play both of those. If you want to double those and draw 4 cards every time your opponent draws 1, that's broken. Like, that's insane. And not only does it have the ability to double those triggers, it gets bigger as you're letting your opponents draw cards, which is just infinitely just like a cherry on top of the mountain of ice cream that is this card in cEDH. I think the ceiling is very high for what we want to do, because I'm naming a lot of fairy tale Christmas lands. Its basement, where it can be absolutely horrible, is also very deep. You can play this and not have anybody draw 2 cards, and it just stays a 5 mana 3/3 for the entire game, and that's just horrible. But its ceiling in a fairy tale Christmas land story, where you can double all of the draw triggers that you have when your opponents draw cards, then that is also insane. And also, it says a player. That includes yourself. So if you drawing a card triggers an ability of something on your board, such as like, whenever I draw a card, someone loses a life. Whenever I draw a card, I put a +1/+1 counter on something. Whenever I draw a card, I draw an additional card. That doubles all the time. And I think that's just a very, very easy mechanic that can be broken very easily. The only problem, and not only is the Christmas fairy tale land magical place, like that's like one of the downsides, that you have to have all of those things to line up. The other thing is it's 5 mana for a very high ceiling effect, but also at the same time effect that we don't see a lot, where we double our draw triggers for when people draw cards. So I think if it was like 3 mana, it would be like an auto include, but I also think that the 5 mana is going to prevent it a little bit. I also said at the beginning of this, I don't think it's going to be commander. Maybe it's a commander, but I really don't think so. Final, I think this is the final Krang card. We have Krang, Utrum Warlord, 9 colorless mana, legendary artifact creature, Utrum Warrior, flying, trample, indestructible, haste, and other artifacts you control have flying, trample, indestructible, haste. Only reason I'm bringing this one up is one, it's disgustingly good. It's really good. It's one of the most expensive cards in the set, which being one of the most expensive cards in the set isn't really like a thing, but like I just want to say, like, if your most expensive card in the set is $20, it's not really a hitter set. And I do think that TMNT was kind of overhyped a little bit. That's a separate video. But this card goes in Zuladoc, because there's a lot of ways to give your artifacts affinity. There's a lot of mana in a Zuladoc deck, and I already know that Zuladoc decks with colorless, they play Akroma's Memorial, which gives all of your artifacts you keep cascading into a bunch of stuff, and this just gives your other artifacts a bunch of stuff on top of everything. I know it's not colorless, because I know it's better in Zuladoc if it says your colorless creatures, which includes artifacts and Eldrazi's, but I mean, the majority of your deck is artifacts on top of Eldrazi's, and that's like the plan you're trying to do. So I think this obviously goes in Zuladoc. It's a great card in Zuladoc, and I think Zuladoc, so I think that is the main purpose of this card, and it's probably going to be seen a lot in that deck. That's all I really wanted to say. This is one of my favorite cards kind of in the set. I think it maybe is just like my favorite card in the whole set. We have Mutigan Man, Living Ooze, X and 2 green, legendary creature, Ooze Mutant with trample. Activate abilities of artifact tokens you control cost 1 less to activate, and whenever Mutigan Man enters, create X Mutigan tokens. So I tried building a commander on this one, maybe for the channel, maybe for someone to play. Didn't really work out. There's not a lot of artifact activations in green to utilize as a commander, but what this does do is this lowers not only Mutigan tokens to being tap, sacrifices, artifact. This lowers clue tokens activations. Blood tokens are now free. Food tokens are 1 mana. Treasure tokens are already free. But like the ability to lower those abilities to 0 or 1 mana is broken. Like, not broken, but I saying that word a lot, like as like this card is gonna break the format. But that's a really, really good effect for if you're playing artifact strategy. And I already brought this commander up, but I'm going to bring it up again, Lannis. You make a lot of clues and foods and treasures, and if you're able to reduce foods to 1 mana and reduce your clues to 1 mana, that is maybe like a way better rate than you want to be at. And maybe you're not cracking your foods for 3 mana, but you're mostly cracking your clue tokens, and if you're able to get those clue tokens up to 1 activation for like its effect, like 1 mana, you're doubling your rate of getting a clue token. You make 3 clues, 6 mana, you need 3. So every clue you need 1 mana instead of 2 to activate its ability to keep pushing out activations of Lannis. So this goes, I think this goes in Lannis. Lannis pilots, tell me below, or just Simic connoisseurs, tell me below if you play this in your artifact Simic lists. But I do think this is a very interesting effect on a green creature. If this was in blue, this would be like a snap format staple. But since there's no green artifact strategies, this is definitely a hard one to kind of play around. But I do think the effect is very good. Very good in casual. I think it's a deck that in casually, or just in any 99 of a casual deck, would be pretty cool. But for cEDH, it's kind of like luster maybe. But in Lannis, I think this definitely is a very good all-star. I know I said the last one was my favorite, but this one might actually be my favorite. North Wind Avatar 2, 2 blue and a red creature. Dragon Spirit Avatar. Flying wave. This creature enters, you cast me, put a card you own from outside the game into your hand. So it's kind of a lot of mana. It's 5 mana for a 5/5 with flying, which is very vanilla on a flying 5/5 for 5 mana. But the ability to get a card outside of the game is a very unique effect that we only see on a couple other cards, such as a card we're going to talk about later, which is Turtles Forever. You have Karn, the Great Creator. I think that's the one. It's not the Liberator. I think it's the Great Creator. And then you also, I think, have a couple other ones that are more standard and modern, like Familiar in those formats, being able to grab stuff from your sideboard into your hand. I don't know how much play this is going to see in cEDH. I just think the effect on a creature is really, really cool, and I wanted to give it a little shout out. I know the comedian MTG already did a kind of like a whole video about this card, and you probably already know what card I'm talking about, but it's Ralph and Mikey Trollmakers. This card is sick, and I definitely want to see where it goes. It's definitely, I think, the best commander we have in the set for cEDH viability. So it's 5 and 2 Gruul hybrid mana, legendary creature, mutant ninja turtle, trample haste whenever he attacks. Well, Ralph and Mikey attack. Reveal cards from top of your library to reveal a creature card. Put the card on the battlefield tapped and attacking, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So this is basically control yourself Atali. Like, you control everything about this Atali flip. Whenever it attacks, you reveal cards, you reveal a creature, and you just put it onto the battlefield. Now, we've already seen that 7 mana is not a huge downside. We see it all the time in Atali that Gruul players can make 7 mana by like turn 3. That's not a big issue. What is interesting is that since it's basically Atali casting cost, the fact that it is haste, and the fact that it gets you out a free creature the next time you attack with it, with the turn you bring it out, because you're going to attack with it the minute it has haste on the battlefield this turn, is really good. So if you have a lot of tutor effects to the top of your library, or you have a way to control like the way that your creatures are stacked in your deck, you can essentially just get out free creatures and definitely turn out win lines very functionally in this deck by like 1 or 2 turns. You know, we already see that turn 1 Tallies are possible, so turn 1 Ralph and Mikey's are probably going to be possible, most definitely. On top of that, turn 3 wins on a Tally are going to be very possible every single time because you can find the right combo pieces. With this, if you have a lot of tutor to the top of your library effects, on top of only playing certain creatures, such as like combo heavy creatures, you can go for combos as early as turn 2, 3, or 4. And that's very, very good on a creature like this and in a good color combination. So it's basically like do everything yourself Atali. And I think that's really, really cool. If you want more information about this, I definitely highly recommend checking out Comedian MTG's video that he did on this deck. I think he built a deck around it. I haven't watched the full thing, but it is a very, very good video. I know he makes really, really good content, so I'd recommend checking out that video if you want an in-depth analysis of this card. But these are just my thoughts. I think it's going to be a very, very good card and probably the best cEDH viable commander out of the entire TMNT set. This is a card I don't see anybody really talking about, but I think they should. Ravenous Robots is a 1 and a red artifact creature robot with whenever you cast an artifact, create a 1/1 colorless robot artifact creature token. And then it has red to tap for target or creature tokens you control gain haste on a turn. It's a 2/1. So the second ability we don't really have to worry about. Creature tokens having haste, that's cool. The other part of it is whenever you cast an artifact, you make an artifact. That seems really good. The only reason I say that is because it's very similar like Donatello, where you make a token, create another token or another artifact. You make an artifact token, you make another artifact token. This is you cast an artifact, make an artifact. There isn't a lot of mono red artifact strategies. I don't think this goes in Magda because it's more treasure token oriented. I also don't know what other mono red artifact decks there are, and or Grixis / is it commanders this would go in, but it's got to go in one of them. Like whenever you cast an artifact, make an artifact. That seems like robustly like very broken and could definitely lead to a lot of broken mechanics if every time you cast an artifact, you make another artifact. You're doubling affinity count. You're doubling your artifacts you control. You're doubling all your artifact sack outlets. So if there is an artifact mono red deck, I mean, I know there's a few. There's like the Kranko one from Murders at Karlov Manor, and there's maybe there's another Pirates one that kind of works around artifacts from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. That's more Pirates themed than artifacts. I mentioned Magda, but this doesn't go in Magda. It's not a good enough card for Magda. So really, it's just gonna have to stick in that Grixis is it or mono red artifact category, which we don't really see a lot of. But I really, really think that this deck kind of brings those artifact strategies back to life with a lot of these cards. So I think this is a very, very functional card in a deck like that. So I think it should get some more light. This is a card that's kind of like a pet, not like a pet card to me, but when I first saw it, I was like, this is going to be a really, really cool card if it's used right. Splinter Aging Champion is 2 and a white legendary creature, Mutant Ninja Rat, and whenever he enters, destroy up one target tapped creature. When he leaves the battlefield, you and another target player each draw a card. So the main ability I like to focus on with this card when I first saw it was whenever he leaves, you and a player draw a card. White has a lot of effects that whenever your opponents draw cards, you do things. Smothering Tithe, Trouble in Pairs, you have other white effects. Remember, they draw a card, you do something else. On top of the fact you're also drawing a card. White is also really good at blink effects, like Ephemerate, Momentary Blink, Blink itself. You have Cloud Shift. You have so many ways to blink in white that you can blink this over and over again to have you and target player draw cards. And if you have an effect on the battlefield that says whenever your opponent draws a card, you do another thing on top of the splinter trigger, that seems very, very broken as a mono white strategy and a very consistent strategy that I think could work out. It's a very niche kind of strategy that mono white doesn't see a whole lot of because mono white is more about like life gain, but it's definitely something that is really good, and the additional upside of being able to destroy a target tapped creature is pretty good. Like having both abilities be functionally good on the commander is pretty good. Like, I mean, I know you see that a lot in a lot of the top tier decks, but in a deck like this where it's definitely going to be fringe and competing against other fringe decks, having both abilities means something relevant to the commander, more the second one than the first one. It's going to be able to see a lot of play. This card might get a few laughs because I really like this card, but Transdimensional Bovine is 2 and a green, flying, tap to add 2 mana of any one color. If this goes in Kinnan, and or slash if it doesn't go in Kinnan, someone tell me, because I think this goes in Kinnan. I know I said the Chuck Ground and Dirtbag one goes in Kinnan, that was more like a maybe. If this doesn't go in Kinnan, I'd be shocked because of the fact that it is, if you have haste effects in Kinnan, this comes down, and if you have a Kinnan, you make 3 mana right away. It pays for itself. Or if you don't have a Kinnan yet, and you're getting it out early, it pays for itself the next turn when you get Kinnan out. Or if your Kinnan gets destroyed, it pays for itself in 2 turns. Which, I mean, we see a lot of in like Mana Dorks. 1 mana Mana Dorks pay for themselves in 2 turns, but they pay for themselves by adding 1 additional mana. This adds 2, and if you're able to double or triple that, you're able to make exponential amounts of mana than just a Mana Dork with 1 mana that's giving you an additional 1, technically, every turn. So I really ask Kinnan pilots, again, like the last question, do you play this? Like, I really am interested to see if this is a playable effect in Kinnan. Now, moving on to the sorceries, we have Broadcast Takeover. 2 and 3 red, gain control of all artifacts your opponents control until end of turn. Untap them, they gain haste until end of turn. So this is, I don't know if it's a cEDH card, and or I don't know if it's going to be played a lot. I'm saying that a lot, and or, because there's a lot of ifs on these cards. I have very high ceilings for them. It's a very cool effect. It's basically everything at once Goblin Nabbler or Treasure Nabber. That's what it is. Treasure Nabber. It's basically all in one. I gain control of all artifacts till end of turn, untap them. So you get a bunch of mana, because if your opponents have a bunch of mana rocks, you make a bunch of mana. And they also gain haste if they're creatures, which I think could be a really good counter against a Zul'Adok deck, or a deck that plays a bunch of artifact creatures in general. So I think this is just basically like a ritual. Like in some situations, it's just gain control of all your artifacts, or all of your opponent's artifacts, like mana rocks, and you make a bunch of mana. I could definitely see this being like a ritual, because you could definitely steal like 3 0 mana rocks and then maybe 2 mana vaults on top of maybe some other treasure tokens, because this doesn't specify artifacts. This specifies, or not just token artifacts, but all artifacts. I mean, your opponents will probably crack them in response, but it could if your opponents have no intention to crack them, which would be stupid, or slash like they have a way of making a bunch of like 2 mana rocks are the same deal, or like soul rings or stuff like that. So I definitely see this being a way that you get a couple 0 mana rocks, soul rings, mana vaults, all kind of in one turn. You make a bunch of mana with it, and I think that effect can be really good. First instant on the list comes from the commander deck. Again, it's Continue. I have to say with question mark because it has a question mark in the name. Continue. One in a one in a white instant. Choose up to 4 target creature cards in your graveyard that were put there this turn. Return to the battlefield. This is nuts. I don't think we've ever seen a card like this where you get 4 free creatures for 2 mana. I don't know what Orzhov strategy this goes in, but it's going in one of them. It has to. There's no way that this doesn't go in an Orzhov strategy where you sacrifice creatures, get them back, and keep maybe recurring stuff over and over again. This could definitely, now I'm thinking about it, going like a breach line, where if you keep sacrificing creatures to it, you can keep recurring them back depending on how much mana you have making with those creatures. Also, this doesn't specify they were put there from the battlefield. It just says that they were put there this turn. So I think Diata might want this, because if they keep putting creatures that are non-legendary into their bin, they can continue to continue. Oh, it just sounds weird to say. To keep recurring them back and forth, and have an effect where they just get all their creatures from their deck, depending on how much mana they make. If they have like a blink line effect, they can get all their creatures, which makes the line infinitely easier. I mean, not easier, but I don't know if there's a lot of legendary creatures outside of like my Ral that are able to protect your wins. So this is definitely a broken effect. Broken in the right circumstances. I know I'm saying that card a lot, or that word a lot, but it's broken in the right circumstances, and I think it's very, very cool. Next instant is Raphael's Technique. 4 and 2 red with Sneak for 2 and a red. You may cast this card for 2 and a red. If you also return unblocked attacker you control to hand during the declared blocker step, and each player may discard their hand and draw 7 cards. This is not a wheel because it's a May, but depending on yourself, it could be a 3 mana draw 7. And I mean, with Rogsai, you could definitely get this out turn 2 with an unblocked Rograk being unblocked, because it's a 0/1. And then they'd be like, oh, by the way, I'll return it back to my hand, I'll draw 7 and discard my hand. And that could be really good to feel breach. That could be a really good way to draw a bunch of cards and refill your hand if you're at like a really low card mount. I don't know. This is a very card. It's one of the cards in this list that's just like, I don't know if it's actually going to see play. Like, I seriously don't know. Like, not making up. I'm not trying to make up like a Christmas fairy tale land. This could go in a Rograk decks. I don't think that's a fairy tale land, but it's very, very hard to tell if it's going to actually do good or not. So I do think Rograk is the main home for this deck. Decks that play Rograk and can attack early for unblocked damage will definitely like this effect. I hinted at this card earlier. This is the poster card of the set. It's Turtles Forever, 3 and a white instant. Search your library and or outside the game for exactly 4 legendary creature cards you own with different names, then reveal those cards. An opponent chooses 2 of them. Put the chosen cards into your hand, shuffle the rest into your library. So I've looked and I've scoured the internet actually. There's no win line you can technically do with this, because since they don't go to your graveyard, you have no way of recurring them. They go back into your deck, and there's not a lot of creatures that indirectly search your library again for a creature. So what we're just going to say is that this is a value card where it searches for 4 legendary creatures that all kind of similarly do the same effect. And you just hope that your opponents pick the 2 that you want. Or it could be like a politic tool where like I grab these 2 cards or these 2 cards. Or I can get these 2 cards and these 2 cards. Either which way, I'm destroying that. I can do this. I can do that. So I really, really like its flexibility as hopefully in the future a combo piece to search up something when we get creature tutors on creatures, which seems really broken. I mean, we have Yashan, but that doesn't really count. Or we have a way to do something. Because I like... The thing about this card is, like, I really want it to be good. I've looked up ways. Does it work in Derevi with Emil lines? Does it go in Yoshi Thras to tutor up legendary creature combos? Does it go in literally anything else? And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of anything that this card really goes in. The only other thing I could see is maybe a Mardu strategy that searches for 4 legendary creatures that all kind of work really well together. Putting 2 back in the library, and then maybe having a way to get them back or something. But like I said, it's really hard to tell what you're for surely going to get, because your opponent chooses 2 of them, and you put the chosen cards in your hand. So it's a very toss-up effect. But I am really, really happy. I'm happy to see that white got another tutor effect, but I'm also really excited to see that this card could definitely be played, and I want to see how its flexibility shapes the format. Our first artifact on the list, then with the instance, we have Weathermaker. 3 colorless mana artifact, landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, put a charge counter on this artifact. Taps for 1 mana of any color. Remove a charge counter, add 2 mana, or remove 3 charge counters to deal 3 damage to any target. I first initially saw this card as being very broken because of the fact with like Lumra triggers and untapping artifact triggers, you can deal all damage to your opponents because Lumra, you get all your lands back and you have a way to sacrifice your lands. You can just put a lot of charge counters on this and then deal a bunch of damage to your opponents. So I don't know if that's actually a win line in Lumra or if they play enough effects that they're going to want to untap artifacts. But in a landfall deck like Lumra or any other landfall deck in cEDH, which I don't know what else Lumra or other Lumra pilots would say there is. I don't know if there is any other landfall deck that's viable, but it's a very cool effect. I think the way that it uses the charge counters in different ways, make more mana, deal damage, and also it's damage to any target, which can be very, very flexible and very utile, being able to deal damage to an opponent to kill them if someone ad nauseums to 2, or the necropotence to 2, or you can kill any like 3 toughness creature or lower to kill that thing that kills a lot of like smaller creatures that try to get bigger or draw a lot of cards. So this artifact is definitely interesting. It's a cool effect. I think it just has to be a little bit better to be cEDH viable. First enchantment on the list, cool but rude. It's an enchantment class for 1 and a red. Whenever you attack, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Whenever you discard a card, this class does damage to each opponent. And then the final effect for another 1 and a red, you gamble effect. Research the library for a card, and then discard 1 at random from your hand. I think this is way better in like standard because I don't know if standard has a lot of tutors in standard and or / other formats. In cEDH, it's a 6 mana discard draw. Everybody loses life. You get a random tutor, or not random, but essentially random kind of tutor. So it's kind of a lot for the 6 mana. But I do think if a deck really needs this effect where you get draw, burn, and a random card, that's like everything that like red decks want to do. They want to draw cards and then discard, fuel their graveyard, deal damage to opponents, and then tutor something like a gamble effect because that's all red tutors are gamble effects. So for 6 mana, it's way too much, I think, to ever be seeing play. But I am thinking about it on the back burner if I ever need a third 6 mana gamble in my back pocket. Last, but certainly not least, the second and also last enchantment and the very last card of this entire set that I'm really excited to talk about. It's Ninja Pizza. From the Commander set, or Commander expansion of this set, we have an enchantment that is 2 mana green. Foods you control have tapped to sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color. In the beginning of your second main phase, create a food token. Cabbage Merchant? Anybody? No, I'm kidding. But I don't know if Cabbage Merchant is actually a viable commander, but this definitely goes in it. But it basically just says foods make mana, which is really, really good considering you have Cabbage Merchant in your deck outside of maybe a command zone. Or, again, like I've said multiple times, with 2 other cards, Lannis. Lannis makes a lot of clues, foods, and treasures, and this gives you additional mana on top of your foods and your treasures that you're already going to be making. And the fact that it makes you foods on top of things, if you have like token doublers, you get 2 mana every turn. Or if you have ways to, outside of the effects I've already said, to make food tokens, you make more mana off those food tokens. So it's a very high, not high ceiling, but kind of like I said again, I'll say again, a Christmas fairy tale land. I do think that it has a way of being utilized really, really well, but I don't think it's ever actually going to see play, or it's actually going to be really, really functional. Well, this is all I have prepared for today, folks. Looking at some of the new cards of TMNT, I would give this set, if it was out of 10, talking about each of the cards, like not individually, but as all these cards I've rated on top of everything else in the set, out of 10, I'd give it like a 6.5. Very functional, a lot of new kind of tech that we can look around for cEDH, but nothing super meta-defying. I haven't really planned out a rating system for any of these cards, but I'd say like 10 is format-defining cards, several of them, 9 being 1 or 2 format-defining cards, 8 being some format-defining cards, like they kind of changed the format, but they're not really gonna do anything special. A lot of good cards that we're gonna see play. I would say like an 8 would be a lot of like very good value sets that we've seen, like Avatar. That's a good set. Avatar brought a lot of new stuff that I would say it's more like an 8 if you're trying to look at where sets are in the spectrum. But this is probably like a 6.5. Cool cards, new tech, cool ways of kind of going off other separate strategies, because there's a lot of unique strategies from the legendary creatures to the way the cards are kind of built in this set. But I do think it's like around a 6 or a 7, not to be cringy, but I do think it just falls within there as a set as a whole. Well, that's all for today, folks. I'm super excited if you stuck around to the end of this video. Thank you for hearing me babble on about the new TMNT cards. As I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to be part of the video making process, or if you want to be part of the video, such as podcasts or playing in some of the gameplays, go down to the Discord linked in the description. Please consider liking and subscribing, because that tells me that I can continue to make videos for all the people who choose to watch it. So give this channel a little bit of support, and I'll see you in the next one.